Grand Rising, Grand Rising. How you doing this Rising TMH? Oh, it was fun, entertaining. Got to see a lot of video and photos and stuff. Got to edit and put together. Hmm. Now, Sellout, you made it back? All right, no problem. Pull this up. Peace, peace. Glad you made it out this Rising. Give everybody a little bit more time to check in before we start with the top story. Anything happen interesting over this weekend? Yeah, yeah, I know. Okay. Mm. Mm. Oh, hold on, TMH. Got a report that they can't hear you. Hold on. Let me check and see. All right, TMH, 1 2. Let's get a voice check from you. Make sure you're coming through.
Mic check, mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, no, maybe so.
Yeah, you're coming through now.
Okay, cool.
Now you were saying about Walter Plecker.
Yeah, because a lot of people are not aware of the Racial Integrity Act and how that affected the census in the 30s, 40s, and the 50s. Um, and about how Walter Plecker's assertion is that there were only two races,
Yeah.
black and white. And I told her, I said, well, if there was only two races, then what race were Indians?
Hmm. Good question.
Because if you got a black race and a white race, then what race was the Indians? And so what I broke it down to was the fact that when you talk about classes, when you talk about first class citizens and second class citizens, we have to look at it from the standpoint of, first in line, first in line, first in town, first in line. So the American Indians were here first, so that would make them the first class citizens, which basically means they do not follow the same rules and regulations that the colonizers would, because they were protected.
Mm-hmm.
And when Walter Plecker instituted the Racial Integrity Act, it was for the sole purpose of removing the darker complected or heavily melanated Indians from the tribes to lighten them up so that the tribes could either declare or self-determine that they were white or Indian and vice versa, and the whites could determine themselves as Indian or white, but the heavily melanated people could only determine themselves as black. And according to the one drop rule, that meant that you were sub-Saharan, which basically means West Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But if people do their genealogy, you'll find that you have nobody in your family that's sub-Saharan or even from Africa. So that never applied to you. So that means there was three decades of census, 1930, 1940, 1950, that were affected, which basically meant that our families were removed from the rolls because of Walter Plecker, and they were never put back.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really good conversation, and it got her to thinking, because she was like, "Well, why come?" She says, "Well, why did my grandmother never say anything?" I was like, "Well, If you think about it, it was illegal to say that you were anything other than black, because if you claim black, if you claim Indian in Virginia, they would either jail you or kill you.
Yep.
So they didn't realize the long term implications that was going to have, but they was looking at surviving. So they decided to term themselves as black or
Yeah, basically
Negro.
doing what they did was what they deemed was best for them at the time, basically.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
then all the other states instituted what Walter Plecker put in place, and that's how we end up having a lot of our heavily melanated or even melanated Indians removed off the rolls or even removed off of their land.
Hmm.
And if you look at what happened in the 1960s, I mean the 1860s, when they were kicking our people off the land, and then if you were moving to another state because we were being pushed from the north and we were being pushed from the south, if you were not from that state, then they were charging you what, $5, $10 a day, a
Yep.
fine, and if you couldn't pay the fine, they would then send you to Liberia.
Hmm.
And that was from a newspaper article that we was reading in the on the website that we had found on your the genealogy site.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were getting hit from all sides. So pretty much, yeah, that's basically what was going on this weekend, and this basically this week.
That's what's up. I got the chance to travel this weekend. Had to go down to South Florida. Turned it into work as well. Did a lot of recording. Recorded a couple of Indian spots. I know going down, I mentioned it to y'all that we happened to see a bad accident. I want to take the time to also mention to the family. Hope that they well, to the relatives of the accident, that they're doing okay. They had children and stuff involved. It was pretty bad. So just wishing the best for them this rising. That's all.
Most definitely.
You know, but to get into the news, first story we got across. I know everybody probably heard of it so far. Racist film beating a black woman. Well, Aboriginal woman is desperately trying to avoid a hate crime, and protesters are demanding full justice. It was updated 13 hours ago. It says protesters have called for the hate charges against the white man seen on video last month brutally beating an Aboriginal woman in Dallas, but the man's attorney has dismissed those calls. It's like, it says, despite damning video evidence, the attorney representing Austin Sheffield claimed that there's no proof that racism played a role in his client's assault on 24-year-old, want to pronounce her name right, Lajijan Lee, the Dallas Morning News reported Monday. So Lee's attorney, S. Lee Merritt, has said that Sheffield called this client a stupid N during the March 21st attack in which he pulled a gun. The woman before punched her unconscious. What? As the prosecutor weighs its legal options against the white bartender, many were still fuming over the injustice last week when the police charged Lee with felony criminal mischief for damaging Sheffield's pickup truck after the violent assault. In the fateful encounter caught on video that has since gone viral, Sheffield appears to hold a gun in one hand as he slaps away Lee's cell phone. She was reportedly attempting to call 911. Lee responded to Sheffield's aggression by shoving him away, but he retaliated by punching her multiple times. Says Sheffield was released on $2,000 bond the same day. He was locked up for attacking Lee. He was initially charged with misdemeanor assault. After angry police protests about the slap on the wrist, the police upgraded the charges to aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, a second-degree felony, and unlawfully carrying a weapon. Merritt says there's a strong bias for Dallas County District Attorney John Cruzat to seek a hate crime enhancement against Sheffield based on his racial slur. The newspaper said hate crime enhancements increase punishment if a defendant is found guilty of the original crime. Sheffield's attorney, Junior Cook, is betting on Merritt not being able to prove that his client used the slur. Meanwhile, the officer said it's too soon to consider whether prosecutors will seek the enhancement against Sheffield. Dallas prosecutors have rarely pursued enhanced charges according. Excuse me, let me reread that. Dallas prosecutors have rarely pursued enhanced charges, according to a Dallas Morning News analysis. Since 2015, they've only sought to increase punishment for crimes in 11 cases. Only one case was successful, which involved the prosecution of a black man who pushed a white woman off a scooter. Still, this case has many people saying that full justice will be served only if Sheffield is charged with a hate crime. And that's the end of the update on that story there. TMH, what's your take on that is?
So I'm going to my handy dandy Black's Law Dictionary, and I'm looking at one word, and that's race.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just dawned on me. You know, I'm a little slow. Once I get something, I got it. But how do we define race? And that is important, because if they're saying that this was not racially motivated, or wasn't motivated by hate because of race, then we have to look at what is the definition of race.
Mm-hmm.
Because how many times have we heard it said that white people cannot they cannot have correct, how do you say it? What's the proper term? White people cannot be discriminated against because of they are in a position to where they have been receiving the benefits of quote unquote slavery and everything that's happening to the melanated people, correct?
Yep.
So but here's a caveat, and this is the reason why we got messed up in school, because we were taught to read for what? Comprehension. Basically means you interpret what somebody is saying, and you don't read for understanding to make sure you know what they're saying. So according to what, either the 13th or the 14th Amendment, blacks were given the equal rights as what? White people, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, and we're sitting here saying that white people can't be discriminated against if we're equal to whites, or if black people are equal to whites, then how can black people be discriminated against if they have the same rights as whites? Just a thought.
Good point.
So the moment that we start claiming we're black, then is it possible that we're basically giving up our right to be discriminated against? Because according to the Constitution, we have the same rights as whites. And if the same people who are claiming discrimination are saying to a man and woman that white people can't be discriminated against because of the political, economical society, then by law, can blacks, or can the so-called blacks? Just a thought.
Yeah. We say that a lot, understanding what's being said and what you're being told a lot of times. Because I can agree, how people run to go get something and not realizing we put ourselves in a situation to get treated a particular way. Yeah, I can agree 100 on that. You was finna add into it, no sellout?
No, I was just telling the teammates that was heavy.
I mean, it makes you think. It gives you something to think about. If we were given rights to be equal to whites, yeah, it really do make you think. Like, wow. Next story that popped up, it says, from Renaya Wright to Trinity Love Jones, why aren't Aboriginal children safe? The murders of several Aboriginal children have made national headlines in 1 month. Updated 19 minutes ago. The recent killings of a young Aboriginal American girl may have made national headlines, but statistics show there are plenty of other Aboriginal children who are victims of violent crimes in a disturbing trend that's being seemingly increasing. On Friday, Bernard Reynolds of Albuquerque, New Mexico, was arrested in the beating death of his 5-year-old daughter. Sarah DuBois Gilby. According to the Albuquerque Journal, DuBois Gilby was beaten for not wanting to do her homework. Reynolds claimed he blacked out while giving Sarah a spanking. Neighbors said they heard her screams and cries for help. Police said Reynolds tried to tell paramedics that his daughter was having a heart attack, but when they noticed her substantially bruising, he was placed under arrest and charged with child abuse. Ironically, Reynolds had been granted sole custody of his daughter following concerns of her mother marijuana's usage. It says just a few days before her death, funeral service took place Wednesday for a 10-year-old Renaya Wright, who died March 27 following a fight in an elementary school classroom. Though it was not yet known what the extent of her injuries were and what caused the fight, Wright's mother, Ashley, said during an interview Monday on Good Morning America, she had complained to the school about her daughter being bullied. I notified the school, and I also spoke with her teacher at the time about this same person. Ashley said she would just always come home saying this one girl picking on her. Next, they say Nolene Robinson. On March 16, the body of a 2-year-old Robinson was found wrapped in a blanket on the side of a Minnesota highway. The baby's father, Darius Higgins, 34, was being held on $1 million bond for the shooting death of her mother, Sierra, and he was also suspected of killing Noli. Next, it says Trinity Love Jones. Nearly 2 weeks earlier, the body of Trinity Love Jones, 9, was found in a duffel bag near a bike trail in Hacienda Heights, California, on March 5th. Emil Hunt, 38, her mother's boyfriend, is being charged in her murder. Jones' mother, Jesquia Graham, will also face charges. We got another. Say Kaja Deron. States away from where Robinson and Jones' remains were found, the body of a 2-year-old, Kaja Deron, was found in Canton, Ohio on March 13th. His mother, live-in boyfriend Antonio Hadman, 38, was charged in the child's senseless death, which Hadman claimed was brought on when he got angry at Deron for accidentally urinating on the couch. According to detectives, Hadman hit the boy in the mouth and struck his head against the headboard and wall. This all happened while Deron's mother was at Walmart. Next, Anaya Day Garrett. In Cleveland, 4-year-old Anaya Day Garrett was found unresponsive in her mother's apartment in March 2018. She was severely emaciated and had suffered from a stroke, among other ailments. Her mother and her mother's boyfriend was convicted of her murder on March 7th. 1 year prior to Day Garrett's death, child welfare workers were aware of abuse and failed to complete the follow-up interviews necessary to begin the process of removing her from her home. Her father, Mikhail Garrett, tried to get emergency custody, but it was too late. Since then, the Cleveland Division of Children and Family Services has made several policy changes, including hiring more caseworkers and working closely with community members. See what else they have on this story. There were reportedly about 64,000 Aboriginal women and girls missing in the U.S., according to a report published in February. I'll read it again. There were reportedly about 64,000 Aboriginal women and girls missing in the U.S., according to a report published in February. In efforts to address the problem of missing Aboriginal children nationwide, Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman, Robin Kelly, and Yvette D. Clark initiated the Congressional Caucus of Black Women and Girls in 2016. Though the caucus, they hope to create public policies that eliminate significant barriers and disparities experienced among Aboriginal women and children. According to Child Trends 2016, 14 out of every 1,000 Aboriginal children has reported maltreatment, which was the highest among all races except the so-called, except Native Americans. Black Aboriginal children between the ages of 12 and 19 are also victims of violent crimes at a higher rate than their white counterparts. According to childwelfare.gov, several factors to consider about the disparity of Aboriginal children falling victim to violence and abuse, higher rates of poverty in the low-income communities, racial bias and discrimination displayed by individual caseworkers, and on other reports, a lack of resources and geographical context. Child welfare divisions in cities across the country have come into scrutiny after strings of cases involving deaths of Aboriginal children that fell through the cracks. And that was the end of that report that just got updated. Y'all got any input or any feelings towards that one? They say 64,000 Aboriginal women and children.
Disgust, irritation, frustration.
I'm like, wow. That's all I can do. Shake my head. It's just sickening. That, okay, if you're in a situation, this is my personal feel on it. If you're in a situation and you have a child and you feel like that you don't have the resources to provide for the child or to get in the best environment, I mean, reach out to family members, reach out to other Aboriginal families that can benefit and help you in that situation. And realize that if we all sit here and put this time into making sure each and every last one of our Aboriginal children can have the best environment possible, we can knock these numbers in the bud immediately. I mean, that's just my feel on it. Just sickening. Pull up the next one, see what we got next. That one was like, wow. Let's see.
And there's always three sides to every story.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes news isn't always fair or unbiased. It's more biased than anything.
Yes. My thing is this: for them to know there's 64,000, and just to write an article, the uproar should be way more than that.
I was just thinking about something because I was I found the definition for race.
Yeah.
And the definition, according to the Black's Law Dictionary, is an ethnical stock, a great division of mankind having a common, certain distinguishing physical peculiarities, constituting a comprehensive class, appearing to be derived from a distinct primitive source, a tribal or national stock, a division or subdivision of one of the great racial stocks of mankind, distinguished by minor peculiarities. Now that's a whole lot to say without really saying nothing. But the one word I noticed that stood out was class. And then they break it down by tribal or national stock, or a division or subdivision of one of the great racial stocks of mankind, distinguished by minor peculiarities. So then, when I went to go look up what the different ethnic classifications are, of course, we get African American, American Indian, Alaskan Asian, Asian Alaskan, and let's see, and of course you got white or Caucasian. But here's the thing that I want to get the chat's comment on. Whenever the news refers to us or refers to any melanated person, how do they refer to them in the news? Do they refer to them as African American or they refer to them as black?
Good question.
I hear black. No, I don't really hear African American. Do it? Not no. Sounds kind of long for media.
Yeah.
Only, only
They black you up.
Only time is African American when it comes down to political stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
political, or when they're trying to heap praise or some positive recognition. But anytime there's anything
Yes.
negative, they normally use the term black, correct?
That's what I.
Mm.
Yes.
Just a thought. Grand Rising Free, she says stock market equals slave market equals tribal market. And she says she's heard both. And David Corey says he's heard both too.
Yeah, it depends on. I heard them both, but never use like the black is always in a negative light or something that they're trying to downplay. Yeah, African American is always like something political or something that they're giving a spotlight to,
Mm-hmm.
like an athlete or entertainer or something like that. But even in the news, I'm glad you said that because I was actually writing about that. It's kind of funny when you watch the news that you can get children or young adults at the same age out in the streets. When they do it, it's partying, it's blowing off steam. But when it's us, it's
Rowdy.
riot, uh, violence, up to no good. It's just weird. But then your subconscious hear it used that way. Because if you think about it, most of us even view it that way. That even when we speak to each other, we might not say black or African American, but even in the hood, we had different ways of how we're. It's just weird to me.
So the reason why I asked that question is because if you if the legal ethnic definition of what they call black people is African American, but the news or the police or the prosecutors are saying black, they're basically saying that that is not an ethnic race and they have no legal standing, so therefore they have no rights. Because you got to remember, African American was not put into the Constitution because African American didn't come about until when? 1985.
Hmm. Yep.
The 14th, the 13th and 14th Amendment was basically talking about blacks or Negroes,
Yep.
not
Hmm.
African Americans.
Yep.
So if you have the same rights as whites according to the Constitution, and they determine that you're black, and black people and African Americans both claim that white people or Caucasians cannot be accused or cannot ever be victims of discrimination or racial slurs or anything like that, then how can a black person?
Hmm. Grand Rising Joe 47. Yeah,
I'm
the
not
trick is in the writing. You hit it
yeah
right on the head. It's in
right.
the
So
writing.
right. So I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that could be the reason why whenever they because when our people get angry, they use the most impactful term. Saying black has a more powerful is a more we always use it as a more powerful statement than African American.
Yeah.
So
It
they
been
say when a black man does it or when a black woman does something, but you basically declassifying yourself according to the law. Now, like I said, I could be wrong, but that's just the sense that I'm getting. And like everybody's saying in the panel, I mean on the chat, is that it's a picture that they're painting because it's a negative depiction, basically upholding that we have no legal standing, but we're still using that term and we're not getting any justice. Well, we're not getting any justice, one, because we wrongly classifying ourselves, and two, we're making ourselves equal to white folks, which we basically say they don't have any, they can't be victims of racism or discrimination. So just a thought.
Mm-mm. They're going through the chat, seeing if anybody putting how they feel about the situation or the stories.
David Corey, okay, I stand corrected. He said 1988 Jesse Jackson, African
Yeah,
American.
88,
Yeah.
88, 89. Yeah.
I don't know why I keep saying 85. Something must have happened in 85 that's stuck in my head. Okay. Thanks for the correction, David. Appreciate you, bro.
The Goonies came out in 1985.
Stop it.
So you were just watching it right now.
No, no.
But like, yeah, and the writing and stuff is, I don't know. It's like the more and more, like I was telling y'all over the weekend, the more and more I dive in and read, you can see they really tricked us in the wording and stuff on how it was written. And if you're not paying attention, you'll think it means one thing and it means something totally different. Grand Rising Copper Indio. If you had it free time and wanted to speak on the panel, your link is in your email.
Free brought up a very good point. She says they're calling you chattel animals when they call you black. Not to mention it's also it references death.
Yep.
So if that's the case, so if black references death, how can you kill something that's dead?
Can't. It's already gone.
So then, if you can't kill something that's dead, and you can't murder something that's dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just wondering.
And then I'm glad you said that too, because if you actually study it and you go far enough back, you come to find out white and black mean the same thing. Pale, both void of color. So then when you said they gave us rights as whites because they looked at us as the same, because black and white technically is the same in that form of definition.
Like Free said, they call it spelling for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Fast Copper Indio. If you're dead, you're on the ice and unable to move. When they get you, they already treating you like you don't have no say so and no rights. That's letting you know right there. Yes, David Corey. Yep. Dead, pale, bleach, void of color.
So again, if they gave us the same rights as whites, then and pay attention. For those that watch the news, pay attention from now on. Whenever the only time I've ever heard or I ever recall hearing them use referring to Caucasians as white is when they're making a comparison or a contrast to black.
Yep. That's the only time I've ever heard it.
When they're normally describing Europeans, they normally tell you what they're of what some descent, of Greek descent, of Irish descent. They'll tell you where they're from. But only if they're describing white people versus black people, a situation, white man got shot by a black man, then they'll make that comparison. But other than that, they'll tell you where they're from or what their background is. Again, maybe I'm being sensitive, so
most of the time, don't even mention the race. Just mention their name and go on with the story.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Interesting. Got a new one that just popped up. It says Meek Mills and lawmakers propose probation reform bill. What do you say? I want to make sure people don't have to go through what I did. The story says Philadelphia-bred hip-hop artist Meek Mill has become a fierce advocate for criminal justice reform. The rapper, whose real name is Robert Rameek Williams, is pushing his fight against the unjust system forward by joining forces with lawmakers to propose a probation and parole reform bill, the Chicago Crusader reported. Says the bill is an actively led by the Reform Alliance, a group created by Williams, Jay-Z, Philadelphia 76ers co-owner Michael Rubin, Nets co-owner Clara Woosi, and Patriots owner Robert Kraft. Oh, that's what's up. The alliance was formed to unite leaders across different industries so they can work towards changing the landscape of our country's unjust judicial system by shifting laws and policies related to probation and parole. The Reform Alliance aims to free at least 1 million individuals within the next 5 years. though through the proposed bipartisan bill, which was unveiled by Williams, Rubin, and Representative Sherry Dozer, Representative Jordan Harris, and Van Jones in Philadelphia this week, courts would be prohibited from giving any individual consecutive probation sentences. Courts would also be barred from extending probation and parole sentences if an individual is facing financial hardships and is unable to pay fees and fines. There are other measures featured in the bill, including the prevention of reincarceration for an offender who is associated with an individual who has a criminal past or tests positive for marijuana, and rewards for good behavior. Williams' own experience with the criminal justice system have inspired him to lead this, especially in Pennsylvania. He was re-imprisoned for a minuscule probation violations and received a 2 to 4 year sentence in 2017, which sparked the Free Meek movement. After he was released, he made it his mission to reach back and help other individuals who were in the same predicament but didn't have the same platform. This proposed bill is the first step in change in the criminal justice system, and it's only right that we start in my home state, Williams said in a statement, according to the news outlet. I've lost too much time away from my son, my family, my friends, and fans in Philly because of outdated probation laws. So I want to make sure people don't have to go through what I did. It says pieces of the legislation, like the one that he and other leaders are introducing, are needed, according to the Reform Alliance. Pennsylvania has the third highest rate of community supervision in the country, costing $200 million each year. Furthermore, there are currently 296,000 people on parole or probation within the state. Interesting article. Pretty good that at least somebody's bringing it to attention. How y'all feel about that one? Meek Mills, Robert Kraft, Jay-Z, a couple of other entities getting together.
You said 200 million in Pennsylvania?
Yeah. Let me get back to that part. It says, Pennsylvania has the third highest rate of community supervision in the country, costing $200 million each year. Furthermore, there are currently 296,000 people on parole or probation within the state.
So they ain't got no poor problem. They don't have no poor people that money can go to. No homeless. I'm glad they eradicated the homeless population in Pennsylvania to be spending.
Oh, they eradicated them all right, locking them up, relocate them more likely.
Yeah, but 200 million on supervision, pretty much, like watching somebody.
Who are you supervising?
Who your supervisor?
No. But yeah, you hit it right on the head. That's wasted resources and stuff that can be used to actually bring in solutions forward. You know, instead of sitting here saying you need more probation officers or you need more supervision. No, you need more access to resources. That'll eliminate them problems there. Because you have to ask yourself, a lot of these so-called petty crimes, and even some of the majors, not all of them, what sparked some of them? Lack of resources in the area. And I'm not saying it's excusable. I'm just saying let's break it down and let's see what's the cause to the effects that we have. Is that living in areas where we piled up on top of each other, no resources, so the competition is even more. So people are clinging to the little bit that they do have. Then when a person feel like they ain't getting, some people revert. They're gonna go to the worst case scenario because they feel like they're hungry, they starving, and they need. And like I'm saying, I'm not speaking of all cases, you know, because you do got people that's just gonna be people and just do dumb stuff. But
hey, but that's the mental health. We can talk about that too. But no, go ahead, you good.
Yeah, David Corey, who knows? By reading that article, maybe that is why they went after Robert Kraft. You know, who knows? I feel you, Free. Another eyebrow raise up on Pennsylvania, but we're going to keep that to ourselves. But yeah, that's just weird. 200 million. But then we just read an article before how there's 64,000 missing Aboriginal women and children. Don't they think that 200 million can be used on helping them cases? Just a thought.
That's what
Again, who who are the parties that are involved? How are they classifying themselves, and how they're being classified?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the most important part,
Yes, it is.
and that's the reason why they're not nothing is being done. If legally you don't exist, then why would there be any resources set aside or allocated for a group of people that legally don't exist?
Come on.
Just, I mean, that's just a question that needs to be asked and addressed. When you
So
have
y'all.
the right to self-identify, and you choose to identify yourself as an entity or an ethnic group or a group that has no legal standing and it has no resources allocated to you, then why would you expect to get any help or any aid?
Mm-hmm. Did you just stumble upon why it never happens? Why you can scream and march to the top of your lungs and it doesn't happen? And it boils back to what we've been saying. That's why we say genealogy is the key to open the door to start changing your life and your surroundings. And what we mean by that is simple: finding out who you are so you can start identifying yourself truly, getting your right status. So a lot of these things that we have to deal with, the lack of resources, the lack of a voice, the lack of even being seen in the proper light, we can do something about it. If we know on their books that is written down, identifying as black, as or African American, you're basically telling the world, shoot me, I have no rights, I'm not here, I don't exist, then that's the first fight. Well, to me,
Yeah, no, that's major. You're right.
that's the first fight. Because if it's saying that the reason why our women and children aren't safe in our homeland is because we're misidentifying ourselves, if it means Aboriginal men can't pursue or build the infrastructures that we need for our societies because we're labeling ourselves as black or African American, then yeah, we need all hands on deck focused that way, because we have to change that. And even if we don't change enough of us in our age group, let's make sure the next generation know not to identify as this, or at least let them know the dangers of identifying as black or African American, instead of us sending them out the door every rise and them not knowing. Just my thought on it. You got any input, no sellout, or?
Nah, you hit it on the head.
I'm waiting to see what the 1950 census that's going to be released in 2020 looks like, because that's the last census that's affected by the Racial Integrity Act.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll see a lot of people listed as black on the census records. Now the funny part about it is, for those of us who have parents that were born in the 50s, if you look on your birth certificate, it normally has your race, how you identify. And on mine it says Negro, and for my mother it says Negro, for my father it says Negro.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm interested to see how the census
Marked it
views
down.
it.
Yeah.
My mother was born in 1950, and depending on when the census was released, she may not be on this census. But my father, he was born in 47, so he'll be on this census.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd have to wait another 10 years if my mom's on this census, just to see how hers was listed, which is crazy.
Yeah, people don't realize, what is it, a 72 to 75-year gap between them.
Mm-hmm. And for
Anybody
those,
ever ask themselves why that is?
yeah, so you won't be able to see what that. So you won't be able to do anything about the change. Because think about it this way: when you either choose or don't choose to participate in the census, no, it's going to be chosen for you. Okay, just know that. You know, bet me all day. Bet me all day. You'll lose all day. You know, I want the people put your money where your mouth is. Don't talk smack. Put money on it. The census, you will be identified if you don't identify yourself. So, what you put down on 2020 will not be released until 2090.
Mm-hmm.
So that means your grandkids may be able to see what you put down, or what was put down for you. So why not be smart and fill out your census, notarize it, and send certified copies to your children and have them keep it so they'll know exactly what you put, just in case there's some funny stuff going on. I'm just saying.
No, but that's a good idea. That's taking personal responsibility for our records. That's a start. And I'm glad you mentioned it. Why should we allow, I'm going to say it again, keep allowing people to tell our story? So if we had our records and we had them documented and we make sure we go back to what our ancestors did, passing them down through the family, keeping digital records, hard copy records, photo records. I mean, the technology that we have right now, we can blast our relatives with records that we don't have to wait 70-something years. Well, this generation don't have to wait 70-something years to find out what was going on. It's because of that 72 to 75-year gap why it takes a lot of us to wipe away the confusion on what they did. The image came up. That's a real good idea that everybody can take on personally. You know, we're doing the research anyway. We're all here doing genealogy anyway. We're digging up these records anyway. So if we have to go through these places and chains and traveling to get it, let's make sure whoever come after us don't have to do it. It's right there for them. So when somebody come and try to tell them, oh, this who you is, they be like, my great-great-grandmother and father, they left me this. See, we was this, we was here, da-da-da-da-da. Excellent thought, TMH. Excellent.
Every once in a while, I'm good for something.
Yes, David Corey, great-grandchildren. Like we say here, 7 generations we're doing this for.
And there's something I want to speak on so people can understand how powerful these entities are. When I say these entities, I'm talking about corporate entities and these tax exempt entities. So everyone may or may not be aware of what's going on with the prosecution of the New England Patriots owner, Robert Kraft. He originally wanted to have a trial by judge, but then when they gave him that plea deal, he now wants to have a trial by jury. Probably because he figured out because they're gonna have the trial, and it probably got moved to where he lives, which basically means he's going to have a biased jury, which is going to basically, side on his behalf. Now, here's the thing. If anybody dares, because I dare you, for those that think they know about Constitution and bylaws, go look up the Constitution for the NFL and the bylaws for the NFL, and you'll see that the United States Supreme Court cannot make the NFL do anything with Robert Kraft.
Nope.
They can't make him do anything because they have their own system of checks and balances, and they have their own system of correction, which is the reason why Tom Brady had to have that 3-game suspension when he was talking about taking it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says, we're not even going to look at it because you already have a mechanism in place. So if the Supreme Court is not going to touch the NFL, then please explain to me why people are under the illusion that entities that have bylaws and constitutions put in place don't have any legal standing. And the only reason that the Creek Nation and the Cherokee Nation are having problems with the United States government is because they're violating their own bylaws.
Yep.
So if they weren't violating their own bylaws, then they wouldn't even have any say. So for those individuals that are talking about separation and sovereignty, I want to hear what you got to say about that, and bring some proof. Go look up the Constitution and the bylaws for the NFL, and then bring me some proof and say that what I'm saying is not true. I yield the mic.
Grand Rising, Michael George, peace. There y'all have it. So basically, TMH telling me is if I'm really wanting to get my stuff together in my homeland, doing my genealogy, finding my tribe, tying back into my tribe, the tribe making sure their constitution and everything is there, intact, everything in line how it's supposed to be. The same sovereignty thing that people be screaming every day, wouldn't that be it?
That's exactly what it is.
So basically, under that premises, our ancestors already had it, and it's in this system that we're living in now, because this is our system, and they just put theirs on top of it. Going back in through the system and using the system, to me, wouldn't that be the way how we get it back?
Exactly, because we were taking out the system when we allowed them by force to declare us as citizens. When you were removed from your 501c, your nonprofit, your tribe, and you basically got excommunicated, so you were without a nation. So they had to put you in a nation. So they made you citizens of the United States of America and gave you the equal rights to second-class citizens, the colonizers, the Europeans, the original slaves of this land, which is the reason why they're second-class citizens.
Just had to answer the door real quick.
So
they're the reason we're second-class citizens now.
Right. Well, them and some of our brothers and sisters who are a lot lighter melanated and are either go by Native Americans or American Indians.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, you see it in the census. I know I do in my family where they split brothers and sisters up. Grandma considered a mulatto. Her brother, 2 shades darker, he black. Same mother and same father, though.
Mm-hmm. Same mother, same father, but different classifications.
Different classifications. I'm like, huh? How? Weird. Then one year you labeled this. It was like with Brittany's grandfather. He was born on this thing Negro. When he passed away, they got him as African American. I'm like, hold on. How can you be born one thing and morphed into something else?
So let's put this in proper context. That's like someone being born German, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when they die, their birth certificate or their death certificate reads French.
Yeah.
It's evolution, brother. It's Darwinism. It's just simple.
And when we look at his birth certificate and look at the death certificate, I done Scooby-Doo. I'm like, Hold up.
So, but again, if we don't correct it, then, because think about it, what they say, to err is human, to forgive is divine. If I make a mistake and you don't correct me, and I continue to make a mistake and you don't correct me, then obviously my mistake is no longer a mistake. but they used our entertainers, they used people that we idolized to promote that. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud, right? I remember
Mhm.
that 60s.
Yep.
Well, for many of us, we weren't here, but that they've always used our entertainers, our leaders to promote who we were.
Hmm.
And we never questioned those leaders.
Just look at the timeline, how the domino effect, what was put on us to change our ideology to make us even think that way. You hit it like the 60s, I'm black and I'm proud. Then you had the 70s with with the afros and pro-black movements. And then when people started waking up a little bit more in the 80s, they gave you drugs and distorted music. Then it was kind of funny. They gave you distorted music, but gave the alternative of so-called positive music, but it was filtered with full of Africa. Think about it.
Yeah, I was a man. Go in. I was
Right
about to say
after,
that.
right after they gave us the drug-infused music, the so-called gangster rap and everything, and a lot of us was complaining that, come on, like, give us a balance of everything. The next thing you know, you come out with groups like X Clan,
With the
Brand Nubian,
with the
everybody's pushing Africa,
keys.
Africa, Africa. We was all wearing a little, come on, somebody, hey, I ain't the only one in this age
Dude,
group.
look, dude, I had me a pair of red,
I
black,
can
and
show you a
green.
medallion right
Dude, I
now.
had a pair of red, black, and green loafers that I used to rock at the club. So I already know.
Oh man, yeah.
With my cross colored jeans, look, with my yellow and red cross colored jeans, man, you couldn't tell me
Yeah.
nothing.
Think about it. They had it on everything. We was wearing it on our shoes. Look at the movies from Do the Right Thing,
Facts.
Boomerang. I mean, just look at them 90s, the New Jack
Black
Swing
Buck.
era.
Don't
Yeah,
forget
they
about Black
bombarded
Buck.
us heavy with Africa. Because you got to think, when did Roots come out? Anybody know when Roots was released?
1977.
Now you see how it just went, 77 Roots, 88 African American.
Yep, it's like a book.
99, they done got it by 1999. We want to be entertainers, rappers, drug dealers, and ball players. What? Everybody pimp coming into the 2000s, leave it up to media.
It's our leaders, I guess, right?
No, but it's kind of funny, even that too, when you watch the media. This leader thing, they use that against us. Every time something happened, oh, where's the black leadership? Oh, they don't have no leadership. They don't have no leadership. Ha! The same people that assassinate the ones that came up that can do something are the same ones that are going to question about leadership. Leadership starts with self. Stop looking for somebody to come and guide you there. Because if you don't want it internally, there's nothing I can do to get you there if you don't want change. Y'all was finna say something?
Facts. Nah.
So let's take this back to the street. Say you and your crew are walking down the street, right? And your homeboy or your homegirl say, "Follow me." You might follow them a couple of steps, and then when you realize that you don't know where you're going, what's the first thing you're gonna ask them?
Where we going?
Where you going? Why have none of our people ever asked our leaders where they're going? What's the end game? We just follow.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody want leaders, but they never ask leaders where they're going. So the question is that's not where the leaders, are the leaders, is where are they leading you? Where are they going?
Yes. Beat them lemons right off a cliff.
You ain't lying.
So do your genealogy, find your tribe. Let your tribe help you while you help your tribe. Make sure those documents are tight and straight. And then you can build your nation and be sovereign within it.
Oh, facts, David Corey. Alex Haley didn't write Roots. No, it was Harold Colander. And the original name of the story is The African. If I'm right, I think it's like 15 to 16 years before the Roots story.
And he also, if you look up Alex Haley lawsuit, the same year that the miniseries came out, he also got sued and lost the lawsuit and ended up having to pay $65,000.
Yep.
restitution.
He lost it.
So why are they still showing Roots and different versions of Roots? I'll wait.
And add to that, while we're allowing our children to go to these schools and then bombard this story on them during so-called February, that it's our history. I mean, every February they show this same lie on TV. Are we forgetting that you can find a book in the fictional section, even the original story?
Mm.
The whole name Kunta Kinte is from the original story African. Whole Kunta tribe was created. Ain't no Kunta tribe.
So I'm gonna take this from free. What's in the name? February. Phonetically, February. Tell you so many lies until you tired of hearing them and then you just accept them.
Mm-hmm. February. See you then. Only time they care about you. But that's the thing, Antonio. And you're right. Marching never changed anything. See, somewhere in there, we glorified on the march and not realizing our ancestors marched, but at the same time, they did what we call boycott. They took their money from the beast being the system. If you look at the changes that our ancestors did in the 50s and 60s, it wasn't because they were standing and marching. No, it's when they started boycotting, when they stopped spending their money. That's when dramatic changes started happening. You can scream all day. I'm slapping you upside the back of your head. You yelling, screaming, stop. But you ain't stopping me from doing it. Why would it stop? Stop funding the devices that's tearing us down. Because we are the ones that's funding it. We're the ones that's taking the majority of our resources that we do gather and putting it into things that have no interest to us. Yeah, leading people the wrong way. But we know we doing it, so when there's enough of us as a people are going to start making them accountable for what they're doing and what they're done. Because to know and to sit down and not to do anything about it or to try to find a way to do something about it, then we become just as guilty as the ones that's doing it because we know.
And I get the whole and I totally understand that people are tired of hearing using the system to work for us. But I will ask this one question. And again, I'm all about show and prove. I don't want to hear no talk. I want to see some hardcore facts. Can anybody show me anybody that has gotten outside the system and is living their life totally independent of the United States of America on the US soil? I bet you the answer is no. But I could be wrong. It won't be the first time. But I bet you ain't nobody gonna be able to show me any proof, undeniably. So if you can't show me any proof, then the question is it possible? Is it plausible? Or what does it take? Because the question that I ask is there anybody that's living totally independent outside the United States, not within the system that our ancestors have created, that people are trying to so desperately to get away from? Because my thing is, you can't tell me that you believe that we created everything, but then when we talk about taking our system back and using our own system that our ancestors gave it, then all of a sudden, well, that's their system. No, it's not their system. It was never their system. We created it, we mastered it, and we gave it to them. So either you want to use what our ancestors gave us, or you want to use something else. And if you want to use something else, all I need is undeniable proof that it works, like anything else. And if you can't show me undeniable proof that it works, then you suspect or it's suspect. And I can't do something that's suspect because that's not the way that I'm built. And I don't do things on a wing and a prayer, maybe a might and a hope. That
Mm-hmm.
ain't the way I, that's not the way I was born. That's not the way I was raised, and neither were my ancestors. Because I know who I am. I yield the mic.
And just to add a little on, and to add on to what Antonio is saying, we have to realize why they're able to do a lot of these things. It's because the majority of us don't know who we are. And so, because we don't know who we are, they're allowed to maneuver our land, maneuver who we are, because we have no knowledge of self. See, getting up and leaving our land would be another big problem. Because you have to realize, how did they get a lot of it? We've been reading last week and over the weekend. And even with the Cherokee Freedmen cases going on now, they moved this. They put out an article for us to have a year to come back. And within 4 months, they turned it in, locking everybody out. And why did they lock everybody out for? To vote.
And it's also called abandonment.
Mm-hmm. So once they locked us out to vote, they voted theirs in. And that's why what you see today. So if you think about it, and I'm going to say it again, we have to stop running from ourselves, because that's really the problem. They made us fear us so much that we're running from ourselves. We're running away from a system that our ancestors designed, that if we ever took the time out to learn the system, we can get back to where we need to be. Because my question to people is this: how can you complain about a government when you don't even know how it works? How can you complain about something when you don't even know the foundation of where it came from? I mean, you're saying you hate something when you never took the time out to find out what it was. You're looking at somebody's version or their interpretation of it. And could it be the reason why we stay so trapped is because they're applying the system and we're not? Because to add on to what TMH said is, I have never seen anyone do it, going outside of the system and being totally self-sufficient and independent. But I know what I have seen. I have seen plenty work within the system and become fully sufficient and independent. I mean, I can speak on that because in my journey, that's what I have seen. I mean, we see it every day. We see people come to our land and use our ancestors' system and reap the benefits. See, yes, they made laws and they did this and they did that. But we also got to remember, with them same laws and stuff going on, didn't our ancestors rebuild and rise again?
Always.
Every time they changed the rules, did it matter to our ancestors? They didn't sit around and cry about it. Because if they did, we wouldn't be at this point in this moment right now.
Excuse me.
No, Antonio, it's not about fighting over scorched land. It's about what was written. It's about laws and treaties that are still intact. And the majority of us don't know because we don't even research ourselves. It's like we read last week during the report. 1866, there was a treaty signed. They'll tell you Cal Tom was supposed to be an African mixed in with an Indian. So when I read the story, I'm like, y'all trying to tell me that Africans got so high in ranks and power that they were running the tribes, that they were the ones signing the treaties.
And
Look
here's
at the
another thing.
name. Oh, my bad. Go ahead, TMH.
I'm sorry, I mean to interrupt you. At the end of the
No, no
day,
problem.
Antonio, you are absolutely right, bro. You have your viewpoint is your viewpoint, and I appreciate your viewpoint. I thank you for sharing your viewpoint. And if anybody wants to leave, hey, I will never be the person to tell you that you got to stay and you got to do this, that, and the third. Just like I will never say to somebody that you won't find any Africans in your genealogy, your family tree. All I'm saying is do the research. And if you find Africans in your genealogy, now you at least know what tribe you belong to. Now you at least will know what language they spoke, and then you'll know at least what region of the world you're from and why, possibly why, you have some of the affliction that you have living over here. So with that being said, at the end of the day, everybody's viewpoint is appreciated and determined. And all this information ain't for everybody, and everybody is not going to agree.
Yeah.
So this information is for those that want to stay, for those that want to find their people, for those that want to link up with their tribe, and for those that don't, man, I wish you nothing but bliss, peace, and wealth to you and all those that you steward over. It's just information. I definitely appreciate you, Antonio.
Yes, we
Keep bringing that info, bro.
do. Yes, we do. You know, and that's to everybody. The same thing TMA said is that just because people don't see or feel the way you feel or see a situation you see it, don't mean that we have to war with each other. You know, why can't we spend the time on the things we do agree on? And we all agree that there has to be a major change. Then once we get that out the way, I always said it, we can sit down at the table and work out the petty differences then. But if we waste time fighting over the petty differences, we all being crushed by the same system, you know? Peace, James Gilmore, Grand Rising.
Exactly, exactly. So, at the end of the day, you got to do what works best for you and your family,
Hmm.
because your ancestors and your descendants are the ones you're going to have to answer to, not mine.
Yeah. And that's why we always say, do your due diligence to find out who you are. Because it would suck if you put all your energy and resources behind something to find out later on down the road that's not you.
Exactly. You're right, Antonio. We have to learn how to disagree and still move forward as one.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you right now, I don't agree with a lot of stuff that sellout say, even though he don't talk much.
Oh, still not talking that.
See, and I don't agree with that, but it's okay. Come on, brother.
But yeah, that's the key. Learning that none of us really do agree with each other. It's that we share particular morals that allow us to see certain subjects eye to eye. Because we all come from different walks of life. No matter how much we might look alike in some of our cases, we all have different background stories. And the only way we can relate to situations and by the experience of things that we've been through. So yeah, I'm a firm believer that you can't throw nobody else's experience away or why they see a particular situation. You can agree to disagree and move it forward. Yes, LJ Free, I'm a 100% the same way. A Tauntaunus means you sprung from the soil. Scorched land or not, it belongs to us and our yeah. Yeah, some of us ain't never gonna let it go. Ever, 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 ever.
As that 2 year old middle child says, mine.
Mm-hmm. I'm on my 2 year old right now. I done found some stuff. Mm-hmm. Mine, mine, mine. Yeah, and that when what David Corey said too, we have to remember. And if you find an African in your tree, and if they bred with Indians, then the offspring is Indian. I mean, that's the thing we have to realize. Okay, so let's entertain this for a second, just for a hot second. Let's say they do. They say they brought like a couple of 100,000 Africans. All right, the majority of them would be men, right? So if they came over here, they would have to mate and reproduce. It would be with the women that would be here, and like he said, that would be Indian women making the children what? Because if everything passes through the woman, then what would the children be? And then if that generation made it with an Indian, and them children got back with Indian, and them children got back with Indian, and them children got back with Indian, can somebody please tell me what everybody is still then?
Indian?
Oh, okay. I was just checking. Peace, American Comedic Osiris, Grand Rising. Antonio, don't even look at it that way. Is that we welcome to hear the difference of opinions from people because nobody's here saying that this is the surefire shot because we have multiple ailments that's hurting our communities. We're just streamlining the base problem that we see from where we stand. It's like I said earlier, if majority of our problems is because we're misidentifying ourselves, then let's get into our right identification. No, American Comedic Osiris, just Bones, no chief here. I ain't earned that title. Please don't. But peace to you.
And also too, we have to remember that we are speaking just like everyone that comes on this panel or anyone that's in the chat. We're speaking from our own personal experience and from what we know. That's why I will not have a position that says you can't be sovereign outside of the United States. My position is I haven't seen it. That don't mean it can't be done. And if it can be done, I just need somebody to show me proof. That's all I'm saying. So I can only speak about what I know. And what I know is Constitution and bylaws. What I know is that corporations and companies and for profits and nonprofits, they are basically sovereign entities that when they travel, they don't need passports. Don't believe me? Go look it up.
Bingo. And TMH, it was something that you was mentioning, and I hope you can retell it if you don't mind. When you was telling about the 501c3s and how they started with us with the churches and the churches became the schools. You mind retelling it if you can remember it?
Oh yeah, at the end of the day, when the if you go back to Doom Diverses, when the colonizers supposedly came over here and declared Doom Diverses, meaning if you weren't Christian or you weren't Catholic, then they was going to make you slaves. Well, the first time they tried it, the first couple of times they tried, they got their butts whipped. So then they had to come over here on some peace. We're gonna learn about your culture type thing. And what people fail to realize, or what they don't pay attention to, is if you go back to the 1790 census, some Indians were listed as tax exempt, meaning they didn't pay taxes. What entity does not pay taxes? A 501c tax exempt entity, which basically we are the original creators of that document. Period, point blank in discussion. So if we're the original creators of the 501c document with the Constitution, the bylaws, then the only way that we could have been displaced is to place a 501c, i.e., a church, over top of it. So please don't believe me. Go do your research. What you will find is that we were originally taught because they had Indian schools. Where were the Indian schools? The Indian schools were where? They were on the tribal land. Those Indian schools were taught by ministers because they were 501c's, they were churches. So when the family were out sharecropping and working, who was taking care of the children? These schools,
Mm-hmm.
which were 501c's that were ran by pastors. And if you go back and you do some research, you'll find that when the universities started getting built, they were directed and ran by either Catholic priests, Protestant priests, or ministers. Once that happened, and then they went from ministers to deans, and you go back and do some more research, you'll find that these same universities sit on Indian land. Virginia Tech just recently admitted that they sit on Tutelow land.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to kick certain Indians out, You had to go into their system and take it over. It's no different than you take a good 1,000 people descending on one area. Let's say you take 1,000 people that they send on Georgia, right? And they join a mega church, right? You join a mega church, and then all of a sudden, y'all get to the point to where those new members outnumber the old members. Y'all start sitting on the boards, and then y'all start voting people out. Y'all start passing laws based off of certain things, and then all the old members that were once in that church are now outside the church because they've been excommunicated. Then you change the name of the church, and then you change the church into a university. You do realize that there are some churches that have universities. Don't believe me? Go do the research.
Mm-hmm.
So if so what I mean by when I say is that's how we were excommunicated. We were excommunicated because we were kicked out of our own system that we created. So David Corey, let me correct you on something. 501, it's not just a 501c3. If you Google 501c, you'll realize that there's like over 40 or 50 of them, and it's not a tax write off. It's tax exempt,
Yes.
meaning that they don't pay some federal and some state taxes. But they do have to file a 990, except for the churches. Churches are the only 501c's that don't have to file a 990. So 501c3 is one tax exempt entity. You could turn any entity into a 501c just by filing a tax exempt status. Um,
Grand Rising have AP, Grand Rising.
so,
Go ahead, TMH.
so with that said, if people would go do the research, you'll find that majority of the universities are sitting on Indian land, and those universities were once churches that were ran by pastors or ministers or Catholic priests, and then they were once Indian schools, and then they were once tribal lands, and they took
Mm-hmm.
it over by the 501c.
Yep.
And there are a lot of companies that are paying people lots of money to run 501c's. People just think 501c3 because they don't do enough reading. They just hear somebody say something and they go take it for what it's worth without go doing the research. If you just Google 501c, you'll realize that there are a lot of entities that you thought were for-profit entities that are actually tax-exempt entities. The NFL is one of them. They're 501c.
Yep.
Don't believe me? Go do your
$13 billion
research.
a year. $13 billion a year. Non-profit.
So, because we don't do the necessary research, because we've been indoctrinated with, oh, we got to get away from the white man's this and the white man's that, but it was never his, it was ours.
It made you hate yourself.
Right, and they took our identity and made us them. And that's not something I made up. That's something you can go look up. So, without belaboring the point, that's basically how we got kicked off our own land.
Mm-hmm.
501c. So the same door you left out of, that's the same door you might want to go back through. I'm just saying.
Because TMH, majority of the tribes that's still around that's on the land, what are the majority of them listed as? I'm just asking.
In order to be recognized state-wise, federal, you have to set yourself up as a 501c. Because when you're doing business, and you're going back to your old ways, and this is the reason why it's important for people not to just talk Indian, but to go talk to Indians, real Indians that's doing real Indian stuff.
Bingo.
The purpose of a 501c is to not create a profit. So that basically means at the end of your year, you are either giving that extra to the people that worked on that 501c, or you're giving it back to the community in the form of a gift, a party, or something of that nature. So you're not carrying that bounty forward. That's the way our people live.
Conservative.
So don't go listen to people who are acting like Indians. Go actually have a conversation with people who are Indians.
Yeah, think about it. Didn't our ancestors take care of the land, farm, then got the harvest from the land, had a celebration, and then we made sure that every member of the tribe had what they need to get by?
That's what we did. Yeah.
That we did not hoard the resources. We made sure we took care of the land. Our ancestors only killed what they needed. Hmm. That sounds like nonprofit to me. I'm just saying. And it goes back again to like TMA said, and you done heard multiple people say, and we're gonna keep saying, you don't have to take nothing that we say. We're just giving you the information and just take it on your own and look it up. Like we told people last week, the NFL is non-profit, bringing in 13 billion a year. You don't have to take that to be truthful. Type it in. You can even, like I learned from TMH, you can download the bylaws and look through them.
It's public information. Public information.
Yeah, none of this stuff is top secret G14 classified security to go find it. It's public information.
It's hiding in plain sight.
And that's why they put it there, because they're going to keep you so distracted looking every place else.
Well, it's easy for people not to look at it when people are understanding that, well, I don't we shouldn't be tied into his system, and we shouldn't be doing things his way, and we shouldn't be, you shouldn't be tied into the corporate entity. Here's the thing that I always found interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The colonizers spent over 200 years studying us.
Yep.
They created a whole document. It's not even a document. I don't even know what you want to call it, but they created a whole system on how to sell us because they understood us. But yet we got people telling us that we don't want to study them.
Mm-hmm.
Rule number one: in order to defeat anybody, you got to know your enemy. So you're telling me that I shouldn't know my enemy. I should just separate from them and then fight somebody that I don't know.
Basically, and with the expectation on winning. Huh? Come again?
So I don't know your fighting style. I don't know your predilections. I don't know how you do, how you operate, what rules, what regulations you're using. But then I'm supposed to go fight you blind and win. So who's telling me to do that? That would be the person I'll be watching out for. That's just my opinion.
That's who you need to be fighting. Whoever's sending you out there to get your head toe off. I mean, just think about it. How can you fight something if you're not taking the time out to understand it, to even know what it is? Swinging that L. Matter of fact, you helping them do the job because you wearing yourself out. Because you don't even know you don't even know where you're aiming at. Grand Rising 27, peace.
So we got any other news?
I got some more pulling up right now. Let's see what else they got. Hopefully they got something a little bit more bright.
No, Sellout, I didn't hold the mic today. You got anything you want to say, bro? I'm sorry.
No, you good, TMH. Keep going.
Why he sound like he halfway down the hall and I caught him as if he was leaving close to the exit door?
Like you exiting right.
Yeah. Let me get up out of here. So yeah, if you want to win anything, you gotta know who you're going up against. You have to know your opponent. That's rule number one. For those that claim to follow Sun Tzu, you gotta know your opponent.
Yep.
You can't know your opponent if you just totally disassociate from your opponent and like have nothing to do with them. How are you gonna study your opponent? But if they keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Mm-hmm. Because it's one, every sport you watch game film. Just don't show up and play.
Around get embarrassed and get your feelings hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm weary of anybody that tells me we're gonna have a game plan to defeat this opponent, but we're gonna try this new tactic, something that's never been heard of before, that our ancestors never did. We're not gonna learn anything about them We're going to disassociate from them. And we're going to fight blind. And we're going to win. I don't know about where, I don't know where y'all from, but where I'm from, that's going to cause you to get a throat chop. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me.
I got a positive one that just popped up.
All right, let's hear it.
From Charlotte, North Carolina. Aboriginal couple just celebrated 82 years of marriage. He's 103 and she's 100. Ain't that something? It says Aboriginal couple, D.W. and Willie Williams, who are 103 and 100 years old, respectively, have recently celebrated their wedding anniversary and their birthdays, which were only a week apart. After 82 years of being happily married, the pair is still going strong. So that's some positive news out of Charlotte, North Carolina this rising.
So think about it, 103 years. So it's we in 2019. So
Mm-hmm.
if you subtract 103 from 2019, that puts you at what? So 100 from 2019 would be what? 1919?
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically talking they were born in 1916.
Mm-hmm.
1916.
Can you just imagine that conversation?
That was before World War II.
Mm-hmm.
That was before the Great Depression.
Mm-hmm.
What, Prohibition was still going on.
Like, wow, to hear that conversation.
Wow.
Yeah, they
That
said,
is awesome.
I just pulled up some more, and they said the couple who met in Newberry, South Carolina in 1935 and married in 1937 have one child and one grandchild.
Whoa.
The couple won the state's contest for longest married couple in 2014. Said they enjoyed watching country westerns and playing crossword puzzles together. They also believe that the communication is very important in a relationship.
Mm.
That's what's up. They in high spirits and all too. At least they got one in there. It was short, but they got one in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's all it takes, man. One. Some good news is good news.
I got another one that popped through. Aboriginal sister doing children books. It says, thanks to his mom's new book, this 3-year-old boy is reading on a third grade level. This is out of Washington, D.C. Andrea Stevenson, who is the founder of Simply Outrageous Youth, has written a book called Teach Your Toddler to Read Through Play, a detailed account with over 130 games and activities, tips, and resources. This book details how her son started spelling at just 21 months and reading on the third grade level as a 3-year-old. So the book is available on Amazon, was written to help parents expose their children to words and reading in a fun way. It takes you through a step-by-step process of how she taught her son to read. It provides games, activities such as treasure hunt, dancing, and playing with blocks to make reading a process that is fun naturally and interesting. It will help spark your child's curiosity and wanting to seek meaning from words, which is essentially reading. About the author, said Andrea Stevenson is a licensed clinical worker who has over 20 years experience in working with children. Her organization, Simply Outrageous Youth, SOY, provides accelerated fun learning tips for parents and children. SOY includes a blog on their homepage that gives parents weekly activities and tips for accelerated fun learning for kids. Simply Outrageous Youth gives additional activities and tips on following platforms such as Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, and Instagram. And if anyone was interested, the site with the information is simplyoutrageousyouth.com. Again, simplyoutrageousyouth.com.
Pamela Hall says she teaches him how to think outside the box. Yes, Pamela, she teaches him how to think. Critical thinking was
Exactly.
one of the first things they took out of schools.
Yes, yes. Gave you repetitive thinking. That same mumbo jumbo over and over. Can't apply it to nothing.
Got
They
a
knew what
bunch
they
of
were doing.
got a bunch of zombies now. They don't. They got to be programmed.
Mm-hmm. Say it again. Television programming, radio programming. So who are they programming? Like they said, they studied it for 200 years. You ain't finna sit around nothing for 200 years and don't learn.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that I've learned is that because I have an opportunity to work with a lot of Europeans and sit on a lot of boards, I get to I got to study them. I got to understand how they think, understand how they move, and understand how they operate, why they say what they say when they say it, and I know
Mm-hmm.
how to maneuver. I know how to maneuver around that. And it's funny because they're always, you know, if for those of you who and I'll say it like this, tongue in cheek, for those of you who have ever been in the workforce and been able to work around Europeans, they are very interested and curious about our culture. They
Yep.
always ask questions,
Mm-hmm.
and many of us, you know, we'll either not answer or we just look at them like they're crazy. But I've seen very few of us ask them questions. See, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
that's
ask you
why I'm
questions.
different. Yeah, that's why I'm
I'm gonna get
different. I'm
I'm
finna
you know
ask.
I'm gonna get in your head. I'm gonna see what makes you think and why you think the way that you do. Why
Mm-hmm.
your parenting style is the way that it is, and where you came from, and what your upbringing was like.
Mm-hmm.
Because while you asking me questions, I'm gonna be asking you questions. If you ain't gonna answer, if you're not gonna answer any questions, I'm not gonna answer any questions.
That's how we'll play that. We're gonna interrogate each other.
Exactly.
No shame behind it. Because even
And
in work, I'm glad that you said that. Even on the business side of it, you don't do business deals without knowing the company that you finna do the deal with. You're gonna study and research everything. So first, you have to study and research and find you, who you really are, not this false identity that was given to you and keep being given to you for a reason. And most of us don't even take the time out to even find out the reason. Nobody asks why there's so much money spent yearly on keeping us dormant and distracted. I mean, I'm going to say it again, nothing against no other continent, no other group of people, but they're not spending that type of money to keep nobody else sleep like that. Yes, everybody's under the same program, but in that program, when it comes to us, it's ran stuff, a couple of notches. I want to say like 20 to 30. That they make sure that we're isolated in particular communities that have these ailments to where our ownership is low. So our voice and our say so is low. The resources are basically not there to non existent. I mean, look at some of the stores that they do have in our areas to where relatives and our loved ones have to struggle to get finances, but still they're buying what? Poison.
I'm gonna touch on something that you brought up for a minute,
Uh huh.
brother. You said that there is no other countries that are spending so much money to hide the truth. So let's
Mm
think about this. As countries have changed names, people's ethnicity has changed. So I'm gonna give you an example. Um, People from Iran are called Iranian or Iranian, right?
hmm. Mm hmm.
They were called Persians before then, but that's
Yep.
because the country was called Persia,
Yep.
right? So you
Mm
only
hmm.
change ethnicity when the name of your country changes.
Yep.
Why is it that we've been called everything from black to mulatto to octoroon to quadroon to African America, but you can't tell us where we came from? Because I, I've never heard of black land.
Me neither.
I never heard of mulatto land.
Nah.
No, I ain't never heard of Negro land.
Nope,
But
I
you keep
don't know what
changing. But
Africa
you keep
America is.
right.
Nope, don't even know
Yeah,
what Africa America
Right.
is.
African American. But what I'm saying is, we keep getting our names, our race changed. But
Mm-hmm.
you won't tell me where. But you keep telling me I'm from Africa. So if I was from Africa, right? Wouldn't I have been called an African the whole time because that's where I was from? Why would you call
Mm-hmm.
me black? Why would you call me? If I was African the whole time, then that's what you would have called me. Because
Exactly.
when Jews come over here, they're still Jews.
Yep.
When Greeks come over here, they're
Still
still Greeks.
Greeks. Mm-hmm.
So why is it when you say we came from Africa, you didn't call me African?
Mm-hmm.
I'll wait.
And and when Africans come over here, why they don't call them African American? Think about it. They not considered African American because on the census they got them separated as African, and there's only 4 million of them in the U.S.
David says he's heard of Negro land. I ain't never heard it. I've never seen Negro land on a map. I've never heard any country or any other countries reference Negro land.
No standing, no flag I ever seen.
And what I'm saying is that we're the only group of people that have had our identity or our name changed or our description of us changed, but we've never. But the country that we're supposed to be from's name has stayed the same. So I mean
Peace,
that's
Jay. Grand Rising.
yeah, Grand Rising J Sasquatch. So see that's the type of stuff I think about.
Mm-hmm.
No other group of people have had their identity and their ethnicity changed as much as we have. It's like every 20 years our ethnic identity changes. Why?
Matter
No
of
one
fact,
asked that question.
I never remember being asked. In my life, I should have been asked at least twice.
Yeah, I was born a Negro, and in 1988 I became an African American. Ain't nobody asked me how I felt about that.
None whatsoever. And they about to want to change it again without your permission. They basically are, because what the new census say you are, African American. Everybody else come from a landmass. You come from the racial black groups of Africa. What? I didn't know there was a racial black group.
Legally, there isn't. That's a whole nother story. So again, we cannot stress this enough. Find your ancestors. Find your ancestors. So, what do you say? Jay says y'all sound like M9. I don't know who that is.
No, you meant me.
Oh, me. Oh, okay.
Phone trying to
So,
spell for him like it know what you want to say.
yeah. Because at the end of the day, until you know who you are,
Mm-hmm.
nothing really makes sense.
Facts.
Once I found out the tribe I belonged to, a lot of things started making sense.
Mm-hmm. Jay hit it right on the head too. They called us urban Indians. Just study the history of Seneca Village, Central Park, New York. What was there before the park? Who was living there? Then you find out there was some Indians living there, and they moved them from the park and moved them to the outskirt areas. And what do we know that area to be now? And who's still living there? I'll wait.
Yeah, man. So yeah,
Okay, I
find your
feel.
tribe.
Yeah, find that tribe.
I don't care if the tribe is African. I don't care if it's uh, European. Just find your tribe, because that
Find
will
them.
help unlock a lot of things. Again, I'm not promoting that everybody that's melanated on this continent is Indian. All I'm saying is do your research. I'm
Find out
not
for
gonna tell
yourself.
you where right. I'm not gonna tell you where you from, but just best believe you can't tell me where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
Jay said ain't nobody ask him nothing.
I'm the same way, Jay. I feel like I should have been. I'm old enough. I should have heard it at least twice. Should have got a petition or something. How you feel about this name? I ain't get nada. Old
But
people
we
went in the room and
accepted.
came up with a name. Yeah, and we accepted it. You hit it
The
right on the
problem
head.
is we accepted it. So since we've accepted it, you know, you can't get mad at the person that called you something if you keep answering to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, David Corey, you talking about Staten Island? That's the Shinnecock, yeah. But what Central Park was, you had Indians and stuff living there that they moved out, Seneca Village and all that, to the outskirts of what you know now is the hood, parts that you'll call Harlem and stuff like that. But if you study history and you go far enough back, you'll see them same people has always been there. So who did they move?
They moved us.
Mm-hmm.
The same people that the Rockefellers moved when they put that school up called Spelman, which is his wife's maiden name. That
Mm-hmm.
was on Indian land. A school for
Facts.
a school for Indian girls. It was an Indian school that was ran by a pastor. They used to sit on J.D. Rockefeller's board of directors. Don't believe me? Go look it up.
Mm-hmm.
501c. Then it
Just do the
became a
research.
university.
Mm-hmm. Even like David Corey said earlier, hospitals, John Hopkins. Man, people would be surprised. You would really be surprised. You know?
And a lot of those hospitals were funded by who?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta know the enemy that you're dealing with. You gotta know your opponent.
Yes. You got to know thyself and know thy enemy. Know thyself and know thy enemy. Can't fight nothing if you don't know what it is. How you fighting? That's what I understand. How are you fighting if you don't know what it is? What's your plan? What's your approach to it? What's the weakness to what you're standing up against? What's its strong points?
You're absolutely right. He said this was and still Indian land is how I see it. Right, and you
Always.
have a right to find out. You have a right to find out what your tribe is and what land actually belongs to your tribe. Because
Mm-hmm.
I always caution people, and I caution these people that say they're gonna get these land trusts and go take somebody else's land. Be careful.
Yeah.
Be
Please.
careful, because I'm gonna tell you like this. Those Indians that's on that land, if they
Mm-hmm.
sovereign, you got a better chance coming. You got a better chance coming on my land, trying to take it. And I promise you, you ain't gonna fare too well coming on my property taking my land.
Mm-hmm.
That much I promise you. So you definitely got a chance taking some land from some people that are already there, that's been there for hundreds of years, because you didn't got you an Indian land trust, and you got a bunch of people together, and y'all done determined yourselves to be Indian, and y'all haven't proven who y'all were. Go ahead if you want to. Get your feelings hurt.
Mm-hmm. TMH, I think they said your sound was kind of low. They was asking, can you go out and come back in real quick?
All right. Hold on.
Yeah, just like he said as well. You ain't finna come. It's 2019. You ain't letting nobody come snatch anything from you. So what makes you think you're gonna go snatch something that somebody been sitting on for hundreds of years? And realistically, you probably won't even have to do that if you did your due diligence and found out your tribe and found your tribal records. Might be surprised that you have tribal land that's sitting around here. I remember TMA saying it before that there's a land allotments that when they do these censuses and stuff and they found out how many Indians there are or not, then they start taking this land that was put aside for particular tribes and they start selling it because, oh, these people not here no more. They abandoned the land. So we finna chop it up and do what we want to do with it. So, I mean, doing all that other route to do something, like we said again, who knows? Maybe it might work out, but we never seen it in history to work out compared to something that's already left and designed for you all you have to do is your part and step into knowledge of self, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So do I sound any better, y'all? Well, I don't know if I
Oh
sound
no,
better
David
anyway.
Corey said no, not TMH, the person who couldn't hear you.
Uh,
I need to clarify that.
well, I'm back now, so
Now, what Creek said is called a lien. A lien can enforce any trust. What are you trying to put a lien on? And what right do you have to put a lien on it? I mean, a lot of people use it and say it, but I mean, legally, what rights to or proof of rights to that you have to put a lien on it?
right.
Because yes, you could.
Yeah, somebody has to owe you something, and that property has to be deemed as collateral in order for you to place a lien on it.
Yeah.
Now, I can place a lien on my own property to keep somebody
Mm-hmm.
from coming to keep a lawyer from coming after my property. But the only
Yeah.
way somebody else could place a lien on my property is if they loan me money and I use my property as collateral in the event that I don't pay.
Yep.
That's the
I
only
have to
time you
have
can,
something.
right.
Yeah.
That's the only time you
Yeah.
can place a lien on my property.
You just can't go out there and be like, "Hey, I don't like my neighbors. I'm putting a lien on their house." Nah, that don't work that way. Joe 47, he was like, they was leaving the land and homes, going to them big cities with the bright lights. Yeah, a lot of our ancestors ran into the cities during that time, and a lot of that land and stuff got left out there. You got to remember, they didn't start seizing a lot of this stuff until 1906. You know, starting around 1906, 1920s, 1930s, they started snatching the majority of it then. Because you just have to look of when you got Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood, Florida, North Carolina, New York, all the areas that we sprung up, and we were dominating in the system, making wealth. You know.
Exactly. And I can remember when I lived in Georgia in the late 90s, before 2000 hit. Um,
Mhm.
I was told that Milledgeville was the original capital of Georgia before it changed to Atlanta.
Mhm.
So if that was the case, there were a lot of farms. Well, I mean, there were a lot of farms everywhere, but I heard there were a lot of farms in Milledgeville. And what happened was a lot of the kids of those farmers left to go get jobs in the city in Atlanta, and those those families couldn't keep up with the property because they didn't have the workers and they couldn't pay the workers. I mean, when you got a lot of kids, you got a lot of work. You got a lot of what they call free labor. So when they left to go get jobs or to go work in the city, then that meant the owners of those property couldn't work to pay the note on the land and end up losing or pay the taxes on the land. They end up losing all the land, and then they end up
Mhm.
building uh uh prison systems and asylums, because I think Milledgeville has one of the highest rates of prisons and asylums in,
Mhm.
in in the area.
Yeah.
So
And that's why we're saying genealogy, knowledge of self, find out who you are. You know, and it doesn't matter what it turns out to be, what tribe, from what landmass, but do your due diligence to find out who you are. Let's put an end to this foolishness. Let's start getting out this mess that we all suffering from.
yeah, stop letting people define you. Find out who you
Mm-hmm.
are for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because when I talk to people and I ask them a question, I'm like, have you ever heard that you had Indian in your family? And it never fails. I haven't had anybody say anything different as of yet. That don't mean they won't, but as of right now, everybody has said yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked him, I was like, okay, so do you remember which side of the family it was and which parent or grandparent it was? And then generally they go, well, yeah, I was told that my grandmother or my great grandmother was Indian.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, what does that make you? And then they just pause.
You know, if
But
your grandmother an Indian, that
but
means your mama was an Indian.
but that's that Walter Plecker rule. That
Yep.
one drop. That
Yep.
one drop rule messed us up because think about this. If you found out that you had white in your family, you wouldn't call yourself white, would you?
Nope. People
Okay.
don't.
So that's the way we look at Indians.
Mm-hmm.
We look at Indians as a totally separate race than us.
Mm-hmm.
So if you
But
found
it's
out
not.
so if you found out that your great grandmother was Indian, that can't be you, because that's to you, that's no different than finding out your great grandmother was white.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And people got to remember that same one drop rule, we bought into it. It's not the fact that they bought into it, we bought into it. When I mean we, the generations after them ancestors started buying into that.
Exactly. And David Corey is right. You got to study law. You have to know the laws of the area that you live in.
Yes. And know that laws change from area to area. The laws that's in my area where I live will be different from the laws in the area where TMH live, or no sellout, or vice versa.
And I live in the Northern Virginia area, which basically means I'm 30 minutes away from Washington D.C. and I'm 30 minutes away from Maryland. And the open carry laws in these three areas are totally different. See, I can have my as long as my handgun is registered, I can have my gun in the clip in the glove compartment. I can't have it. I can't drive into DC with it in the glove compartment. And I think in Maryland, in some areas of Maryland, and correct me if I'm wrong for those who live out there, I can have the gun in the glove compartment, but the clip has to be in the trunk somewhere, or something like that. If I'm even allowed to have a handgun in Maryland.
Compared to where I'm at, you can just walk around with it if it's registered.
Right? Yeah. We open carry is allowed here too. But
Yeah.
again, like I said, because I'm so close to DC and so close to Maryland, I have to be very careful where I go. If I,
Cross that
if you have
line.
right, if you have a weapon and it's registered, or you have a concealment permit, you can't go into DC with your gun. You can't. You get locked up. So you got to know the laws, and not just those laws, but your local and your county laws.
Yeah. Yes, most definitely. Know your local and county laws first, really, because that's where you're going to spend the majority of your time. Yes, it's in the state, but that local and county where you live, that's very important to know.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to start being, and I'm glad you mentioned that. We have to start being active. It's like how we were learning, like, there's a lot of things that our ancestors left behind to benefit us, and they happen in these places on the local government level, you know what I'm saying, or county levels, but we don't participate.
Nope.
You know, like when they have these meetings and stuff, because since listening to everybody, I just been keeping up with them just locally here. It's like every other day around 12 o'clock, there's meetings on improvements for the cities, improvements for areas and stuff like that. We have to start, you know what I'm saying, being active in our neighborhoods. Nobody's going to come and do it. We have to do it. We have to start showing up and letting people know. When I mean people, our own people know that we care about our situations. If our children are seeing us as parents and adults, and we're not standing up and being active in our community to make change, how can we expect anything better from them?
You can't. You can't. You can't expect anything if you're not doing what needs to be done.
I see on that note, it's 10:02. Been another great Grand Rising show. Any closing remarks from UTMH and No Sellout?
Man, y'all killed it today.
Don't get me that charge. I ain't do nothing. I'm innocent.
You immortalized it. Nah, I appreciate the info, brothers.
Just doing our part. That's all. TMH, any message you wanna leave?
Start with your oldest living relatives. Find out who you are. Start there, please. That's all I got.
And on that note, like I said, it's been another great Grand Rising. Would like to thank the panel of No Sellout and TMH. I'd like to thank the chat for making this possible again. And we'll see you tomorrow for another Rising. Until then, peace.
Peace, y'all.